So yeah, like as I was saying, today we're gonna finish the Sirens of Titan, more or less. We'll have some stuff to do. We'll have a kind of concluding lecture next meeting. But I wanted to answer, Madison asked a question before class about the paper that I wanted to address in front of everybody. She asked, I forgot exactly the wording of the question, but something to the effect of, well, when I'm writing about which characters had the most meaningful life, how do I judge that? Do I judge it based on in the context of the story as a whole, or should I take it on a sort of individual level, like each character lived the most meaningful life for him or herself? And my answer was, well, it's up to you, right? It's your essay. I personally would probably pick the second option, right? I would probably pick the two characters that had the most meaningful life on their terms, right? Because I think I'd have more to say about it. But really, it's up to you, right? If you have a kind of a more creative idea for a paper that involves kind of, their life is more meaningful in the context of the whole story, then that's another thing, and that's fine too. I think this also raises an issue that is going to be important in your paper, no matter what you write or who you write about, is you need to, you might do this at the beginning of the paper, you don't have to, but you might just be very clear at the beginning and lay down what you mean by meaningful, right? Like, what is your standard? So you're gonna pick this character, let's say, I don't know, you pick Chrono, had the most meaningful life, Bird Boy or whatever, right? I don't know. Like, maybe you pick him for some reason, and then you pick Winston as the least meaningful or something like this. I just randomly selected them, so I'm just making that up. Whoever you pick, you need to establish, well, what is the criteria that you're using, right? What is it about their life that makes it meaningful, right? Is it that they make connections with people that they loved? Is it that their life made sense? Is that what you mean by meaningful? So again, there's not one right answer for this. I just think, when you're writing your paper, try to be clear about it. You could, do it in your opening paragraph, or maybe just through the writing, through your examples, you can say, here, this character did that, check mark for meaningfulness. This character failed to do this or failed to act this way, check mark for not being meaningful, or wasting their time, or living a life devoid of meaning. So that's again, and on Wednesday, again, if we have time, I'm gonna try to plan it so we got a good 30 minutes or so at the end of class. Hopefully, maybe by then you can brainstorm a little bit and you have some idea of which two characters you're gonna handle, and we could get some discussion going and maybe brainstorm a little bit and help you with some ideas. So anyway, just wanted to address that question because it was a good question, and I'm sure it was something maybe somebody else had thought of as well. So this last chapter and the epilogue, it's almost like a new story in a way, right? Because you get a brand new character, Salo. I mean, we've heard about him, but we really meet him in this last chapter. And I like this too because you get introduced to all these philosophical problems, and one of the issues with that's brought up, all these philosophical issues that's brought up in the last chapter, is the idea of artificial intelligence, or AI. Why do I say that? Because we already know that Salo is an alien, right? That he is from another planet, namely the planet of Tralfamador, or Tralfamador. I always say that wrong. But what else do we find out about him in this chapter? What else do we learn about? And what does it have to do with AI? So he's an alien, but he's a special kind of alien.
It says that he's trying to deliver a message, like an envelope.
Okay, yeah, so we learned that about him. Yeah. There's more. That's not what I was looking for, but that's not what has to do with the AI. But yeah, you're right. So we learned that. We learned that he's got a message to deliver. He's not supposed to open the message, right? He's been told, don't open this message. We're also told that he's like the perfect specimen of his species, something like that. That he's the most handsome, but he's kind of a funny looking creature, right? He's got tangerine skin and suction cup feet that can blow up into bubbles and float on water and walk on walls. And he's got 3 eyes. I suppose that's what the cover is It's supposed to be a reference to is the eyes of Salo. And I guess when he gets all emotional, which is odd, once we find out who he is and his nature, he starts to get emotional at the end with Rumford. He closes two of his eyes and leaves one open and looks up to the birds in the sky, or the bluebirds of Titan, because he's very upset, right? He feels like he hasn't been a good friend to Rumford. Why is that odd, though? What is weird about him? He's not just an alien, but what else is he?
He's a machine.
He's a robot, he's a machine. So this chapter brings up all sorts of questions about what is life. Is Salo alive, right? Is Salo a living being? He seems to have emotions, at least at the end of the book. He's very, very upset that he's disappointed his friend, Winston Rumford, right? But yeah, like you said, he's there. He's on a mission. His spaceship has broken down, and he's stuck on Titan, and he's waiting on a spare part. And he's going to get that spare part from who? Yeah, remember his little good luck thing? That's the part on the ship that Salo's been waiting for, right? And in fact, this is I think quite brilliant. It's like, okay, all these historical events on Earth were messages to Salo. This is on 276. So we learn about how, like, Stonehenge, what is the meaning behind Stonehenge? Y'all know what Stonehenge is, right? In England?
The rocks.
Yeah, all the rocks that are sort of piled up. No one knows, really. I mean, there's all these theories, but it was so long ago, and the stones are like from a different stone. They shouldn't be there. They must have been carried for thousands of miles, and when they were carried, they didn't have machines, so they must have been rolled over logs or something, and they don't know how they got there, why they were stacked in a circle. But we learned from the book that it was just a message to Salo because he's watching Earth, right? And basically Stonehenge, when viewed from above, in Tralfamadorians, and this language of his says, replacement part being rushed with all possible speed. Yeah. Stonehenge wasn't the only message old Salo had received. There had been 4 others, all of them written on Earth. The Great Wall of China means, in Tralfamadorian, when viewed from above, be patient, we haven't forgotten about you. The golden house of the Roman Emperor Nero meant we're doing the best we can. The meaning of the Moscow Kremlin when it was first walled was, you will be on your way before you know it. The meaning of the palace of the League of Nations in Geneva, Switzerland is, pack up your things and be ready to leave on short notice. And it goes on to talk about how all these other events in history were failed messages, right? That like certain civilizations rose up and didn't quite reach fruition because they were supposed to be delivering a message to Salo, but they weren't able to do it, right? Basically everything that happens on Earth, the entire history of Earth, everything was to get this little strip of metal to this robot, Salo, on Titan's moon. So this kind of, in a way, I just thought of this kind of fits in nicely with the religion that we learned about from the last chapter. I don't know, in a way, maybe it does contradict it slightly, because what did the religion say? Luck is not the hand of God, and there's nothing you can do to please or to make God angry, or there's nothing you can really do. God is sort of indifferent, sort of thing. I think the point of that religion is to sort of let go and not sort of take yourself so serious, and not to try to find some bigger meaning, or blame things on something else. Just sort of accept your fate, accept your luck, good or bad, that sort of thing. And in a way, I don't know. I think people obviously Rumford is pretty upset when he finds out what this is all about and why he's gone through all this trouble. But in a way, I don't know. It seems like it's pretty meaningless. I don't know if you found out that everything was just to get an alien, a little strip of metal to the planet Titan. That would kind of piss you off, I guess, I suppose. But somehow some of the other characters don't seem to care, right? Like Chrono, right? In fact, I'll get to this later because it's at the very end of the chapter, but he has a kind of a, I don't know, it's kind of a beautiful attitude. I don't know how to describe it, but he's sort of like, oh, it makes sense. Okay, I'm cool with that. And he like throws his good luck piece down and just walks off to join the birds, right? So that's interesting. But yeah, back to this idea of Salo and the idea that all the historical events on Earth, we think that, you know, they're moving in some direction to some great culmination, and they never do. So where did the Tralfamadorians come from? If they're robots, who made them? Yeah, but there must have been an original maker. They don't know. And honestly, they don't care either, kind of, it seems like. But they have a legend, right? This is on 279. This legend also, I think, ties into a major theme of the book, right? Trying to find meaning and become kind of falling flat, and you're kind of looking for it maybe in the wrong places. But in a way, you might say that this legend or this parable, I mean, this is maybe a bit subversive or maybe controversial, that this might be a parable of us, right? This might be describing us. But this is what it says about how the Tralfamadorians came about. How were they built? Well, once upon a time on Tralfamador, there were creatures who weren't anything like machines. They weren't dependable. They weren't efficient. They weren't predictable. They were durable. And these poor creatures were obsessed by the idea that everything that existed had to have a purpose, and that some purposes were higher than others. These creatures spent most of their time trying to find out what their purpose was. And every time they found out what seemed to be a purpose of themselves, the purpose seemed so low that the creatures were filled with disgust and shame. And rather than serve a low purpose, the creatures would make a machine to serve it. This left the creatures free to serve higher purposes. But whenever they found a higher purpose, the purpose still wasn't high enough. So machines were made to serve higher purposes too. And the machines did everything so expertly that they were finally given the job of finding out what the highest purpose of the creatures could be. The machines reported, in all honesty, that the creatures couldn't really be said to have any purpose at all. The creatures thereupon began slaying each other because they hated purposeless things above all else. And they discovered that they weren't even really good at slaying. So they turned that job over to the machines too. And the machines finished up the job in less time than it takes to say Tralfamador. This is like the Terminator movies or something like that, right? But this is interesting though. It's sort of like you get this sort of progression of civilization, right? Humans looking for meaning. We try to find purpose. We create societies. We got to fight for the tribe. Well, that's not a high enough purpose. Let's invent religion or the gods. And oh, well, that's not enough because it's not tangible enough. Let's invent the nation state and how these nations, and we'll build these implements of war. And now we have a society now where you could argue it's becoming more and more and more automated. Like things are doing all these menial tasks. Why do I want to clean? Just get one of these little circular robots to, vacuum 24/7 and, clean everything for me. I have no time for this. I'm going to read philosophy and these higher ideals. And then what happens is, we lose any meaning in our lives. And this is I guess a common theme in science fiction. I want to say there was a Star Trek episode like this where Captain Kirk and Spock, I think it's, him, Spock, and what's the guy's name? Bones, the doctor. They're down on the planet, and the planet's completely empty. There's no life there, but there's a computer that lives there, and the computer is like this super intelligent, life form, art of AI or whatnot. And they, Captain Kirk is, talking to the computer, and the computer, I think the computer is hell-bent on killing them because they are useless life forms. They are useless. And Kirk has to convince the computer that he's wrong. And he basically feeds him a contradiction, I think. He's like, so what was your directive? He's like, to protect the people. And he's like, And basically how he protected them is he killed them, right? Because he realized that, he's like, well, why did you destroy them? I realized that they were the biggest threat to themselves, so they had to be destroyed. And he's like, so to save them, you had to destroy them? You had to kill to save? He's like, yes, kill, save, kill, save. Then he's like, wait, he realizes a contradiction and then he explodes or something like that. I guess that's one argument too, is that AI is not possible because you can't program a contradiction. It destroys the language, it doesn't work, right? And humans are able to believe in contradictions. We are imperfect, and that's what makes us, gives us an advantage, I guess. This is kind of weird. In a way that to me kind of harkens back to old Kierkegaard. Remember, he, with his notion of faith being an absurd or a paradox, that we embrace the absurd or something like this. What makes Salo human, though, do you think, according to Vonnegut? Because I think that Salo becomes maybe not human, but as close to human as he could be, I suppose.
His love for Robert.
Right. Friendship. To me, friendship, I think, is an important thing in this book, right? To me, it's not the fact that we're able to embrace contradictions, we're imperfect, whatever. It's this connection that we make with other people, right? In the epilogue, Malachi says that when him and Beatrice were stuck on Titan their last days, that's what they learned the meaning of life was, is to love whoever's around, to be loved. So I think, again, this notion of friend. Remember also when he was on trial, kind of on trial, when Rumford said, is there anything you've ever done that's good? The only thing he can think of is, I had a friend, right? I had a friend. I don't know much about him, but I had a friend. His name was Stony Stevenson. So, friendship is key here. And I think Salo, he's never heard of friendship until he met Rumford, and he liked it. He wanted to practice it. He wanted to see what it was like. And at the end of the book, he realizes that Rumford doesn't consider him a friend and doesn't think he was a good friend. And this breaks his little robot heart, right? Why does Rumford get mad at him?
Because he finds out what everything was about.
Right, yeah, he finds out really what it was all about, that these people are showing up to just bring a little scrap of metal to get his ship so he can deliver a message to this other planet. And he's effectively dying too, right? He's gotten stuck in some sunstorm or something, right? Because remember, he's simultaneously existing across this span of time and space, but he's on the sun, he's dying, right? Him and Kazak, this is it. So he's like, I'm sure if they made a movie, it'd look really cool. He'd just be like all covered in electricity and like half disappearing and, all weird, computer generated special effects or whatever. But he's on his last moments, and Salo is just trying to, hey, you're my friend, we're friends. He's like, you're not my friend, just being a total, just kind of cold to him. And he keeps calling him Skip, right? Because that's his childhood nickname, Winston. And he's like, don't call me Skip, right? He asked him, is there anything I can do, Skip? Anything I can do to help, basically? And Rumford groaned. Will people never stop asking that dreadful question? According to Rumford, this is the worst question, or the most, I forgot how he puts it at the end, but it's the most horrible expression in the English language is there anything I can do, Skip? What's so bad about that? You're just asking, can I help? I don't know. I'm trying to think of what is the point? Why doesn't he like it? Is it because you don't really want to help? Like it's just sort of like he doesn't think you're sincere when you're asking it? Is it because there's really maybe nothing you can do to help? I think that's kind of it's like fate. Like why? You can't do anything. It's annoying that you even asked that. Of course there's nothing you can do. I think that's sort of the point. And Salo, he's crying. How does Salo cry? This is kind of weird. It starts annoying Rumford.
Oh, so
He's sucking, like his suction cups are like sucking on the ground. That's how he cries. And Rumford's like, can you just stop that already? Just leave me alone. This is on the top of 287, after Salo's like, yeah, kind of skip. He's like, do you have to call me that? No, said Salo. Well, then don't. I'm not fond of the name unless somebody I've grown up with happens to use it. Well, I thought as a friend of yours, I might be entitled. Shall we just drop this guise of friendship? Said Rumford curtly. Salo closed his third eye, the skin of his torso tightened. Guys, he said. Your feet are making that noise again, said Rumford. Skip, cried Salo. He corrected this insufferable familiarity. Winston, it's like a nightmare, you talking to me this way. I thought we were friends. Let's say we managed to be of some use to each other, and let's let it go at that, said Rumford. Salo's head rocked gently in its gimbals. I thought there'd been a little more to it than that, he said at last. Let's say, said Rumford acidly, that we discovered in each other a means to our separate ends. I was glad to help you, and I hope I really was a help to you, said Salo. Didn't I give you half of my UWTB, said Salo? Didn't I let you copy my ship for Mars? Didn't I fly the first few recruiting missions? Didn't I help you figure out how to control the Martians so they wouldn't make trouble? Didn't I spend day after day helping you design the new religion? Yes, said Rumford, but what have you done for me lately? What, said Salo? Never mind, said Rumford curtly. It's the tagline of an old Earthling joke, not a very funny one under the circumstances. Oh, said Salo. He knew a lot of Earthling jokes, but he didn't know that one. Your feet, cried Rumford. I'm sorry, cried Salo. If I could weep like an Earthling, I would. Right, so he's really upset, okay? And what does Rumford ask of him? What does he say? He's like, well, he's like, is there anything I can do? And finally he says, well, okay, here's what you can do. What does he ask him to do?
To read the message.
Yeah, open the message. Does he do it?
No.
No. Boy, does he regret it. Right? Boy, does he regret it. But you know what I thought about this morning? I was like, it's probably better that he did it. Probably better that he didn't open the message, right? Because I think Rumford would have been even more pissed off if he read the message, right? What was the message, right? It was a dot, okay, which means in Tralfamadorian, greetings. And the mission was go as far as you can go and find a place that's got people on it that have a language. So take our Tralfamadorian technology, fly as far as you can to the farthest reaches of the galaxy, and when you get to the other side, find the nearest planet with people on it and send them this message. But don't ever open that message. Never open that message. And all it was greetings. Yeah, pretty pissed off. I guess I would be if I would have heard that. I guess Rumford's better off. He died thinking he would have been happier hearing the message, but no, he wouldn't have. And Rumford kind of takes him to task for that because he's like, because you're a machine, right? I'm kind of trying to find the spot here. I think that's on 290. Yeah, Mr. Rumford, said Salo, you think I somehow used you? Not you, said Rumford, your fellow machines back on your precious Tralfamador. You think you've been used, Skip? Tralfamador reached into the solar system, picked me up, and used me like a handy-dandy potato peeler. If you could see this in the future, said Salo miserably, why didn't you mention it before? Nobody likes to think he's being used, said Rumford. He'll put off admitting it to himself until the last possible instant. He smiled crookedly. It may surprise you to learn that I take a certain pride, no matter how foolishly mistaken that pride may be, in making my own decisions for my own reasons. Again, bringing up this notion of free will or lack thereof. I'm not surprised, said Salo. Oh, said Rumford unpleasantly. I should have thought it was too subtle an attitude for a machine to grasp. So he's kind of picking at him, right? This surely was the low point in their relationship. Salo was a machine. since he had been designed and manufactured. He didn't conceal the fact. But Rumford never used the fact as an insult before. He had definitely used the fact as an insult now. Through a thin veil of noblesse oblige, Rumford let Salo know that to be a machine was to be insensitive, to be unimaginative, was to be vulgar, was to be purposeful without a shred of conscience. Salo was pathetically vulnerable to this accusation. It was a tribute to the spiritual intimacy he and Rumford had once shared, that Rumford knew so well how to hurt him. Salo closed 2 of his 3 eyes again, watched the soaring Titanic bluebirds again. The birds were as big as earthling eagles. Salo wished he were a Titanic bluebird. And then the spaceship with Malachi and Beatrice and Chrono starts to land, and Salo says, "I give you my word of honor. I didn't know you were being used. I haven't the slightest idea what you machine," said Rumford nastily. "Tell me what you've been used for, please," said Salo. "My word of honor, I don't have the foggiest." "Machine," said Rumford. "If you think so badly of me, Winston, Mr. Rumford, after all I've done and tried to do in the name of friendship alone, there's certainly nothing I can say or do now to change your mind." "Precisely what a machine would say," said Rumford. "It's what a machine did say," said Salo humbly. He inflated his feet to the size of German bat balls, preparing to walk out of Rumford's palace and onto the waters of the Winston Sea, never to return. Let's skip forward a little bit. "Skip," he said, "tell me what to do. Anything at all." "In a very short time," said Rumford, "an explosion is going to blow the terminal of my spiral clear off the sun, clear out of the solar system." "No," cried Salo, skip. No pity, please," said Rumford, stepping back, afraid of being touched. "It's a very good thing, really. I'll be seeing a lot of new things, a lot of new creatures." He tried to smile. "One gets tired, being caught up in the monotonous clockwork of the solar system." He laughed harshly. "After all," he said, "it isn't as though I were dying or something. Everything that ever was always will be, and everything that ever will be always was." He shook his head quickly and cast away a tear he hadn't known was on his eyelid. "Comforting as that chronosynclastic, infundibulated thought is," he said, "I should still like to know just what the main point of this solar system episode has been." You summed it up far better than anyone else could in your pocket history of Mars," said Salo. "The pocket history of Mars," said Rumford, "makes no mention of the fact that I've been powerfully influenced by forces emanating from the planet Tralfamador." He gritted his teeth. "Before my dog and I go crackling off through space like buggy whips in the hands of a lunatic, I should very much like to know what the message you are carrying is." I don't know," said Salo. "It's sealed. I have orders." "Against all orders from Tralfamador," said Winston. "Against all your instincts as a machine. But in the name of our friendship, Salo, I want you to open the message and read it to me now." And he didn't, right? He didn't do it. And that really tears him apart. Well, actually, literally, right? What does he do at the end of the chapter? What does Salo do after he shows the new visitors to their new home? What does he do?
He opens the message.
Well, he does open the message. He finds out that it says greetings, but then what does he do at the very end of the chapter to himself? He destroys himself. He tears himself apart, right? Why does he do that? I guess he was barely holding himself together to begin with. Maybe he was holding himself together just to get Chrono, B, and Malachi to their new home and kind of show them around and tell them, what was up. But yeah, it's like pretty much as soon as he opens that message, he's pretty upset, and like you said, he tears himself apart. I'm going to skip this episode where they're on the beach, right? They land and they see all these statues, right? So there's all these statues that Salo has spent time carving on the planet with the Titan's peak from the sea, right? So that's where we learn about the Sirens of Titan. They're just sculptures in the swimming pool there at the palace. what's the name of the palace again? I forget. It's modeled after the Taj Mahal. It's like Nuff Travelin' or something like that, or what the hell's the name of it? I forgot. Someone help me if you can. It's in italics, so you can see it kind of jumps out at you. I think it's in the very beginning of the chapter because he's describing Titan and everything. What is the name of it? Dun Roman, that's it. Like D-U-N Roman. Yeah, Dun Roman, exactly. Oh, this is funny, yeah. Like Malachi, I'm gonna skip most of this. I said I wasn't gonna do any of it. But yeah, Malachi is like basically when he gets to the planet, he's like, I'm gonna do nothing, right? Like I've been following orders, like whatever he tells me to do, I'm just not gonna do it, you know? And then he's pretty much free at that point though, right? Because, you know, what else are you gonna do on Titan? No one's there to really control you. Let's see. Oh, and Chrono, this is funny too. Chrono is you know, young Chrono is using his switchblade knife to reflect the sunlight into the alien's eye. You know, the alien is, you know, rowing his ship across the sea to go pick them up and take them back. And you know, you think he's just doing it to be a dick, but you realize like that was actually a survival tactic him and his mother had learned in the jungle, you know, when they were stuck in the Amazon. Okay, let me see. So they show up and they get to see Winston before he dies. The dog is gone, unfortunately. Poor Pooch, right? So, you know, they get inside, you know, Chrono, Malachi, Beatrice. They get there, they get to talk to Niles Rumford before he dies. And he says, you know, hello, Beatrice, wife. Hello, space wanderer. Gallant of you to come to take one more chance with me. Hello, illustrious young bearer of the illustrious name of Chrono, said Rumford. Hail, O German bat-ball star. Hail him of the good luck piece. The three to whom he spoke just stood inside the wall. The pool was between them and Rumford. Old Salo, who had not been granted his wish to die, grieved in the stern of the gilded rowboat that was beached outside the wall. I'm not dying, said Rumford. I'm merely taking my leave of the solar system. I'm not even doing that. In the grand, in the timeless, in the chronosynclastic, infundibulated way of looking at things, I shall always be here. I shall always be wherever I've been. I'm honeymooning with you still, Beatrice. I'm talking to you still in a little room under the stairway in Newport, Mr. Constant. Yes, and playing peekaboo in the caves of Mercury with you and Boaz. And Chrono, he said, I'm watching you still as you play German bat-ball so well on the iron playground of Mars. He groaned. It was a tiny groan, and so sad. The sweet, mild air of Titan carried the tiny groan away. Whatever we've said, friends, we're saying still. Such as it was, such as it is, such as it will be, said Rumford. The tiny groan came again. Rumford watched it leave as though it were a smoke ring. There is something you should know about life in the solar system, he said. Being chronosynclastic infundibulated, I've known about it all along. It is, nonetheless, such a sickening thing that I've thought about it as little as possible. The sickening thing is this. Everything that every earthling has ever done has been warped by creatures on a planet 150,000 light years away. The name of the planet is Tralfamador. How the Tralfamadorians controlled us, I don't know. But I know to what end they controlled us. They controlled us in such a way as to make us deliver a replacement part to a Tralfamadorian messenger who was grounded right here on Titan. Rumford pointed a finger at young Chrono. You, young man, he said, you have it in your pocket. In your pocket is the culmination of all earthling history. In your pocket is the mysterious something that every earthling was trying so desperately, so earnestly, so gropingly, so exhaustingly to produce and deliver. a fuzzing twig of electricity grew from the tip of Rumford's accusing finger. The thing you call your good luck piece is a replacement part for the Tralfamadorian messenger, for which the Tralfamadorian messenger has been waiting so long. The messenger is a tangerine-colored creature who now cowers outside the walls. His name is Salo. I had hoped that the messenger would give mankind a glimpse of the message he was carrying, since mankind was giving him such a nice boost on his way. Unfortunately, he is under orders to show the message to no one. He is a machine, and as a machine, he has no choice but to regard orders as orders. I asked him politely to show me the message. He desperately refused. Skipping there to the bottom, he's on his last little breaths. He says, "All I can say," said Rumford from the cocoon, "is that I've tried my best to do good for my native earth while serving the irresistible wishes of Tralfamador. Perhaps now that the part has been delivered to the Tralfamadorian messenger, Tralfamador will leave the solar system alone. Perhaps Earthlings will now be free to develop and follow their own inclinations, as they've not been free to do for thousands of years." He sneezed. "The wonder is that Earthlings have been able to make as much sense as they have," he said. "Remember me as a gentleman of Newport, Earth, and the solar system," said Rumford. In a punctual way of speaking, goodbye. And then piff, he's gone. And so this is the sort of death scene of Salo that comes up, right? Salo sort of talks himself into basically destroying himself, right? "Skip," he cried into the sky, "Skip, the message, I'll tell you the message, Skip." Right, so he's changed his mind. He's running in there to try to show Rumford the message, but it's too late. His head did a somersault in its gimbals. "Gone," he said emptily. He whispered, "Gone." "Machine," said Salo. He was speaking haltingly, as much to himself as to Constant, Beatrice, and Chrono. "A machine I am, and so are my people," he said. "I was designed and manufactured, and no expense, no skill was spared in making me dependable, efficient, predictable, and durable. I was the best machine my people could make." "How good a machine have I proved to be?" asked Salo. "Dependable," he said. "I was depended upon to keep my message sealed until I reached my destination, and now I've torn it open." "Efficient?" "Having lost my best friend in the universe, it now costs me more energy to step over a dead leaf than it once cost me to bound over Mount Rumford." And this is what makes you think he's become human now. He's less efficient. Why does it take him more energy to step over a dead leaf than to jump over Mount Rumford? Why would it take you more energy to do something? Why would it take you more energy to take 5 steps? Like, would it just always take you the same amount of energy? Why would it take you more energy to take 1 step than to take 5 steps? What state would you be in?
Tired.
Oh, well, you're tired. Okay, that's not us. He's not tired, though. He's a robot. He probably doesn't get tired. How does he feel, though, about what he's done in his relationship to Rumford? He's sad. He's guilt-ridden. He's guilt-ridden. And so I think that's why he says he's inefficient. It takes me more energy to step over a leaf than it used to take me to jump over a whole mountain, because I'm just so weighed down. I feel so horrible. I wasn't a good friend when I was asked to be. "Predictable," he said. "After watching human beings for 200,000 earthling years, I become as skittish and sentimental as the silliest earthling schoolgirl." "Durable," he said darkly. "Well, we'll have to see about that." He laid the message he had been carrying so long on Rumford's empty lavender contoured chair. "There it is, friend," he said to the memory of Rumford. And much consolation may it give you, Skip. Much pain it cost your old friend Salo in order to give it to you. Even too late, your old friend Salo had to make war against the core of his being, against the very nature of being a machine. You asked the impossible of a machine, and the machine complied. The machine is no longer a machine. The machine's contacts are corroded, his bearings fouled, his circuits shorted, and his gears stripped. His mind buzzes and pops like the mind of an earthling, fizzes and overheats with thoughts of love, honor, dignity, rights, accomplishment, integrity, independence. Old Salo picked up the message again from Rumford's contoured chair. It was written on a thin square of aluminum. The message was a single dot. Would you like to know how I have been used? How my life has been wasted? He said. Would you like to know what the message is that I've been carrying for almost 500,000 earthling years? The message I'm supposed to carry for 18 million more years. He held out the square of aluminum in a cupped foot. A dot, he said, a single dot. The meaning of a dot in Tralfamadorian, said old Salo, is greetings. The little machine from Tralfamador, having delivered this message to himself, to Constant, to Beatrice, and to Chrono, over a distance of 150,000 light years, bounded abruptly out of the courtyard and onto the beach outside. He killed himself out there. He took himself apart and threw his parts in all directions. Chrono went out on the beach alone, wandered thoughtfully among Salo's parts. Chrono had always known that his good luck piece had extraordinary powers and extraordinary meanings. And he'd always suspected that some superior creature would eventually come to claim the good luck piece as his own. It was in the nature of truly effective good luck pieces that human beings never really owned them. They simply took care of them, had the benefit of them, until the real owners, the superior owners, came along. Chrono did not have a sense of futility and disorder. Everything seemed in apple pie order to him. And the boy himself participated fitly in that perfect order. He took his good luck piece from his pocket, dropped it without regret to the sand, dropped it among Salo's scattered parts. Sooner or later, Chrono believed the magical forces of the universe would put everything back together again. They always did. So in a way, like again, maybe this is because I just read this recently again. I'm starting to think maybe Chrono had the most meaningful. Like I don't know. I'm like, who would I pick if I was writing this essay? And I've got so many different choices. You know, like maybe I would pick Boaz. Maybe I pick the one that I'm having trouble with is who has the least meaningful. That's because there's quite a few, and it's like I was talking the other day about, what's his name? Ransom K. Fern, who's barely in it. He's like a very minor character, but he had a pretty lame. I would say though, you could argue that Rumford had a meaningful life. It just wasn't very fulfilling. Like he knows, I know why I did everything I did. There's a meaning behind it. I don't happen to like that meaning. I don't accept that meaning. And ironically, Chrono does. Perhaps maybe, to be fair, Chrono doesn't have as much to draw from as Rumford, right? Chrono only lived on Mars. He only knew German batball. Malachi is even worse, right? Because he had all his memories wiped. So all he remembers is what he read in the letter to himself, basically. And so he's really going off a very sort of, you might say, what's the word I'm looking, vacant sort of history or vacant sense of self. This is interesting. His optimism at the end comes true, though, doesn't it? Chrono thinks that the magical powers of the universe will put everything back together again. What does happen in the end, right? How do these people end up spending the rest of their lives, right? So now Rumford is gone. Salo is, well, I won't cross him out yet. He's scattered in pieces on the beach there. What happens to these people in the epilogue? How do they end up living the rest of their days? He becomes the bird, right? They're these huge birds, right? They're the Titan's bluebirds, and he becomes one of them. And they never see him. Well, he visits the mom every once in a while, right? On her birthday. Just a random day he makes up, and he feels like visiting her. He'll call it her birthday and shows up to the mansion. She stays at the mansion. So she's at the Dun Roman, is that what it was? She's at the Dun Roman, and she doesn't take very good care of the mansion. So, whenever her son shows up for the birthday, he usually has he's usually very civilized, right? He'll show up, he'll put on a nice suit, he won't be bird boy for a day. He's a nice good boy, a good mommy's boy. But then what happens at the end of the visit every time? He goes nuts and he starts, this sucks, society sucks, I'm a nonconformist, civilization is evil, I'm gonna go back to the birds. He has this horrible, hissy fit, runs off, and she's very distressed, so she puts out like a flag, like a white cape or something in her yard, and that tells Malachi she needs him. And he'll show up to her mansion, and he kind of cleans up for her because she doesn't take care of the place. And what does she do? She writes. Let's find, what's the title of the book? It's something like The Meaning of Life, like the real meaning of life.
It's the true purpose of life in the solar system.
Right, there you go, the true purpose of life. She's not taking this bullshit from Salem, and they're full of it. That's bull crap. There's meaning, right? There's meaning. And we find out later, towards the end of the book, that they both found out the meaning of life was what? Where's it at? I think it's on 320. Yeah, only an earthling year ago, it took us that long to realize. Oh yeah, Salo is talking to Constant at the end. He's flying him back to Earth before he dies, and he says, "You finally fell in love, I see," he said, Salo. So they actually did fall in love with each other only an earthling year ago. So it took them like forever, but like a year before they die, they fall in love. He says, "It took us a long time to realize that a purpose of human life, no matter who is controlling it, is to love whoever is around, to be loved." And so that's sort of the moral of the story. But yeah, she's writing this book. I'm not sure what is this supposed to reveal about her character? Remember, she's a poet as well. She's the only poet from Mars. Maybe if you're writing your essay about her, you might go back and read the poem and see if that gives you any clues to her character. I totally forgot what the poem is even about. Also, remember, what did she do on Mars? Do you remember what she did? She was a teacher, but what did she teach? How to breathe. She's a breathing instructor. Is there some metaphorical significance behind that? I don't know. Again, that's something you could explore in your essay if you wanted to. So yeah, she writes. Malachi just kind of hangs out by the ship, but what does he end up doing? I kind of gave it away. Salo's at the end. So how does Salo get back? Malachi puts him back together. And it's weird because he doesn't really know that he did it right. What does he say at the end? He's like, this is after Beatrice dies, right? She dies during one of his visits. It's very peaceful too. It's just like she's talking and in the moment she's not there, right? It's not a very violent death. It's a very peaceful death. He buries her. The bird boy shows up. I guess that's the last time he ever sees the bird boy. What does the bird boy, what does Chrono say? Let me find this, because Chrono does come down and talk to him. Let's find that page. It says she died. And,
It's 318.
okay. Malachi buried his mate in Titanic peat on the shore of the Winston Sea. She was buried where there were no statues. Malachi Constant said goodbye to her when the sky was filled with Titanic bluebirds. There must have been 10,000 at least of the great and noble birds. They made night of day, made the air quake with their beating wings. Not one bird cried out. And in that night, in the midst of day, Chrono, the son of Beatrice and Malachi, appeared on a knoll overlooking the new grave. He wore a feather cape, which he flapped like wings. He was gorgeous and strong. "Thank you, Mother and Father," he shouted, "for the gift of life. Goodbye." He was gone, and the birds went with him. So that's sort of our farewell to Chrono. That's the last we're going to see him in the book. And again, I mean, there's a way you could argue. Also, too, his existence seems to have a spiritual aspect to it as well, right? So, like, not only is he accepted amongst the birds, he's able to, like, sit on their eggs. They let him sit on their eggs, and they're one of him, right? He's one of theirs. But what else does he devise that is sort of, I guess, a spiritual aspect of his life on Titan? What does he build? Do you remember what Chrono does? Malachi finds them, and he's not really sure what they represent. There's these sacred shrines. You remember that? They're basically astrological, right? Like there's like a circle where Saturn's rings are, and there's where Titan is, and he puts a feather where Titan is. And Malachi will find these sort of shrines, and he's like not quite sure, but he'll fix them up. He'll tear the weeds up and clean the brush, and he'll put like a new twig on the circle and a new feather and all this. And he says, maybe Chrono doesn't even know who's doing it. Maybe he thinks the gods are doing it. And he's like, that's kind of beautiful. That's great. I'm happy, kind of thing, right? But so Salo comes back. Salo is back. And he says, how do you do, Constant? How do you do, said Salo. Thank you for putting me back together again. I didn't think I did it right, said Constant. I couldn't get a peep out of you. You did it right, said Salo. I just couldn't make up my mind whether or not I wanted to peep. He let the air out of his feet with a hiss. I guess I'll be moseying along, he said. You're going to deliver your message after all, said Constant. Anybody who has traveled this far on a fool's errand, said Salo, has no choice but to uphold the honor of fools by completing the errand. It's kind of a funny statement. My mate died today, said Constant. Sorry, said Salo. I would say, is there anything I can do? But Skip once told me that was the most hateful and stupid expression in the English language. Constant rubbed his hands together. The only company he had left on Titan was whatever company his right hand could be for his left. I miss her, he said. You finally fell in love, I see, said Salo. Only an earthling year ago, said Constant. It took us that long to realize that the purpose of human life, no matter who's controlling it, is to love whoever is around to be loved. Well, if you and your son would like a ride back to Earth, it wouldn't be much out of my way. And he decides to go ahead and go. He's like, I'm going to go back to Earth. He decides to go to Indiana. Why does he want to go to Indiana? He's never been to Indiana. Who remembers why he did this?
They killed a white man
For murdering an Indian, Native American, whatever, yeah. He says, I want to go to a place that did that. And he says, I don't know anybody in Indianapolis. I don't know anything about Indianapolis except for one thing, said Constant. A thing I read in a book. What did you read in the book, said Salo. Indianapolis, Indiana, said Constant, is the first place in the United States of America where a white man was hanged for the murder of an Indian. The kind of people who will hang a white man for murdering an Indian, that's the kind of people for me. Salo's head did a somersault in its gimbals. His feet made grieved sucking sounds on the iron floor. His passenger obviously knew almost nothing about the planet toward which he was being carried with a speed approaching that of light. At least Constant had money, right? So what does old Salo do to sort of help him out? He's pretty much doomed, right? So we know he gets dropped off at a bus spot in the middle of the night in the snow, and he freezes to death, right? And Salo kind of knows that this is going to happen. What does old Salo do to help him, though, and ease him to death?
He gives them an image.
He hypnotizes them, right? And he inserts some image so that when he dies, he'll have an image on his death, a comforting image. What's the image of?
It's Stony.
Yeah, Stoney Stevenson, right? His best friend. And again, friendship, right? Another important theme of the book. And think about it this way too. All that he's got to hold on to, really. That's all he has to hold on to, his memories, and he has very few because they got basically drained and he's brainwashed. His only memories is, I've got a friend, my best friend, Stoney Stevenson, and my mate, and Chrono. So, as he dies, this is sort of the last passage of the book. A golden spaceship encrusted with diamonds came skimming down the sunbeam. Oh, let me back up a bit, right? Because he looks up and the clouds are bright and they split, right? Salo had hypnotized him so that he would imagine as he died that he saw his best and only friend, Stoney Stevenson. As the snow drifted over Constant, he imagined that the clouds opened up, letting through a sunbeam all for him. A golden spaceship encrusted with diamonds came skimming down the sunbeam, landed in the untouched snow of the street. Out stepped a stocky, red-headed man with a big cigar. He was young. He wore the uniform of the Martian Assault Infantry, Unk's old outfit. Hello, Unk, he said. Get in. Get in, said Constant. Who are you? Stoney Stevenson, Unk. You don't recognize me? Stoney, said Constant. That's you, Stoney? Who else could stand the bloody pace? Said Stoney. He laughed. Get in, he said. And go where, said Constant. Paradise, said Stony. What's paradise like, said Constant. Everybody's happy there forever, said Stony. Or as long as the bloody universe holds together. Get in, Unc. Beatrice is already there waiting for you. Beatrice, said Unc, getting into the spaceship. Stony closed the airlocks, pressed the on button. We're going to paradise now, said Constant. I'm getting to get into paradise? Don't ask me why, old sport, said Stony. But somebody up there likes you. That's the end of the book. And I don't know, I read that last line last night. I don't know if that's the best last line of the book, because it sort of contradicts remember the religion of the world, the new religion that, whatever you do doesn't depend on God. Good luck is not the hand of God or something like that. But on the other hand, this is his dream, right? This is his peaceful vision. This is what's going to comfort him. This is, I guess, semblance shards of his past, and I guess some semblance of the friendship that he had with old Stony Stevenson. And I guess Salo did his best. Salo cares now. Is Salo human? I don't know. What does it mean to be human? This is like an interesting question. Anybody ever seen Blade Runner? You seen the movie Blade Runner? Oh, that's a great movie. Yeah, Blade Runner's, it's one of the, I think, if not the greatest, one of the greatest science fiction films ever made. And they did a pretty decent sequel recently. Was it Blade Runner 2040 or something like that? I forgot. It's got, who's in it? I forget. Harrison Ford is the original guy, but the new one has, Ryan Gosling, I think, is in the new one. But yeah, in that movie, there's a character he's a Blade Runner, and the job of the Blade Runner is to kill replicants. Replicants are these robots, these humans. They look human. You can't tell the difference between them and human beings, but they're very deadly. And there's only 4 or 5 of them left in the world, and this guy, the Blade Runner, is an expert at detecting whether you're human or not human, and he knows how to kill the robots. And at the end of the movie, I don't want to give too much away, but by the end of the movie, he starts to think that maybe he's a robot. And he thinks that he's fallen in love with a woman who is a robot. And then he starts to ask himself, well, what is the difference? Like, how is it that I'm not, let's just say I was a machine who was designed like Salo. Does that not give me value, at the same value I would have as a human being? I don't know. I used to be very hesitant about this. I was like, come on. If something was programmed and designed by a human, it's not a human, it's just a machine. But then, you watch like all these like Black Mirror episodes and you're like, wait a minute, Like there's that one Black Mirror where, I forget the whole plot, but it's like they create a woman to be basically a calendar, Like they create this like artificial copy of this woman, put it in a machine to do her schedule for her. And have you seen this episode? You know what I'm talking about? Like basically the guy who's in Mad Men, the guy who's like the main character for Mad Men. If you ever saw that guy, but he creates her basically, and she's in this little box. So you see this woman in like a white room, and the guy's like, all right, you need to organize stuff for this woman who looks exactly like you. You're a copy of her. You need to like schedule her appointments, schedule her hairdresser, schedule her, you've been bought by her. And this chick's like, I'm not gonna do that. Screw you, I'm gonna be free. And he's like, oh, okay, you don't wanna do that? All right, well, we'll just have you stand in this white room for, let's say, 40 years, and he turns like this button on, and it goes by for like 2 seconds for him, but for her, it's 40 years. And she has nothing to do. She's got no appetite. She doesn't get hungry. It's just a white room. And then he opens the thing again, and she's like, oh my God, I'll do anything. Just give me something to do, And he's like, and he's like, all right, well, you're gonna do. She's like, I don't like that. He's like, oh, okay, well, let's try another 100 years. No, okay, I'll do it. And then, like, by the end of the episode, you're kind of like sympathizing with this creature that is a computer program, What is it though that makes somebody have value? What is it that makes Salo not a human? In this book, it's it seems like it's almost, and this sort of ties into the misanthropy. I don't think that Vonnegut is a misanthrope. I don't think he hates humans, but the way he distinguishes humans from robots, what makes Salo more human, are things that aren't very flattering. You know, it's the fact that he's not perfect, that he hesitates, that he makes mistakes. In fact, there's like 4 or 5 designations, I think. What is it? Efficiency. Let me find that passage that I was just reading. Predictable, dependable, efficient, durable. We are none of those things. Humans are not dependable, we're not efficient, we're not predictable, we're not durable. But that's what machines are. And that's how he distinguishes it. He doesn't say this, but I think he kind of implies it to me, and maybe this is because I read a lot of Heidegger. Machines don't give a shit. Humans care. You know, that's why I think artificial intelligence is impossible. All these people that say they're creating AI, we're going to create art. You're not really, unless you redefine AI. If you mean by artificial intelligence, you're going to make a mind that's just like a human mind. That's not possible. You can make a machine to copy it, to do things that the human mind does, to function the way that, but can you make a robot care? No, I don't know. How do you make a robot care? Anybody watch that? Probably not. You don't know what the weird stuff like I watch. What is it, Westworld? Did you watch Westworld? It's a show, I think it's Showtime or HBO. It's a series, but well, there was a movie they did in the 70s, which I've never seen the movie, but the show just came out recently, and it's kind of like this, where it's a theme park of the Wild West, and all these rich people go to pay to go be a cowboy for a week or whatever, but they're in this world that looks real, and the people look like real people, and they can do whatever they want with them, right? They can murder them and kill them, but they're just robots, so it's fine, right? And so it's a pretty violent show, because these people are like, you know, sick. They're like, I'm rich, I'll do whatever I want, you know, it's just kind of crazy. But at the end, like season 2 or 3, I guess, towards the middle of season 2, the robots start to go crazy, and they start to rebel, and they start to like learn how to like just, you know, control their movements and have free will. And one of the aspects of the robots that makes them able to be so human is you learn every one of them has a memory implanted in them of loss. So one of the characters, his first memory is losing his son to cancer. Another character lost her daughter to some marauders or something. And so they programmed these things to have some individual or some person in their life that they cared about that they lost. And so it's that attachment to the other consciousness, to the other person, that makes us human. The fact that we care, the fact that we give a shit, I guess, for lack of a more eloquent way of putting it. And that is not something you could program. There's a philosopher, I think he's still around, Searle, who teaches at Berkeley, who he argues that for AI to work, it would have to be part meat or something like that. Like you can't just program a robot. It has to have some physical, some nerves, some organs, like something alive to care about itself at the very bare minimum. You know, sort of just dead ones and zeros on a computer program can get a lot. You know, we can program computers to do a lot, but to make them care, to be concerned, that is something that is absolutely human. But anyways, I feel like I'm probably going over for time, and yeah, I kind of am, so I better be quiet. Let me stop the video here.